2021 is wrapping up and coming to a close, sort of makes me happy, sort of makes me sad. But that means right now it's time for me to talk to you guys about the absolute top 10 worst movies that came out in 2021. Now, this just means these are the movies that I saw, and just subjectively, my opinion only, I think were the worst films that came out this year. The movies that I had the displeasure of sitting down, experiencing, and having burned into my memory where I can never forget them, ever. So let's start talking about it. Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. I'm new here on YouTube, so please consider supporting me and my channel by subscribing, leaving a like, and a comment down below. Without any other further ado, let's talk about the worst movies of 2021. Before I continue, I just want to start off by saying I have not reviewed all these movies. I started my channel very late in the year. West Side Story was actually the first movie that I reviewed, so I'm kind of fresh. So some of these you won't really know, how I felt about it because I never got to review it. So I'll try to give you a brief review, a brief synopsis of why I don't like it, but keep it really short so this is going to be more of a rapid fire video of me just saying I don't like it, and here's why. Let's get to them. Coming in 10th place, it is Cinderella. This movie was something that, honestly, when I first saw a snippet of the trailer I just caught a part of it, and I thought, it's kind of like it could be cute, Looks like it could be a cute movie. And then I saw the full trailer, and I was kind of like, still could be kind of cute, Looks a little odd, but it could be cute. And I saw it, and it's just one of the most confusing movies I've ever seen. It's one of those musicals where they use real songs in it, which can work because, if you've seen my review for Sing 2, I love that movie. And it uses songs that exist in, the real life that have been composed for the movie. But here, it just felt out of place. The humor was really weird. The way they redid the story was strange. It just felt really cheap, low budget, and it just seemed to lose all the charm of what makes Cinderella what it was. And it tried to modernize it too much by making it ridiculously flashy and ridiculously over the top, and it just didn't work. They added story elements I didn't care for. They changed characters and I didn't care for. Especially the characters of the animals are the main characters that I'm speaking of because I really think they did a number over on them. So that's my basic review of why this movie is my 10th worst movie. It just didn't need to happen. And if you've seen some of the things where they were dancing in the road in front of cars to promote it and singing, that was kind of disturbing. Coming in next in 9th place is Venom, Let There Be Carnage. My biggest problem with this movie is not only is it a bad movie, it is a letdown movie, and it is a step-down movie. What do I mean by that? Okay, not only is this movie bad, it's a letdown as in you have Venom versus Carnage. Something that you should not make go wrong, because it should be super easy to write. And somehow they muddle that up, and it just falls flat. And it's also a step-down movie because when you made the original Venom movie, and you made it PG-13, and you made it at least more serious in tone, that was your first shot at ever making the movie. So even though I'm not a fan of the first Venom movie when it first came out, I was like, okay, this was their first shot. I'm disappointed. It's not a very good movie, but I can see that this is the first time they've tried. For you to have that experience, step down and make this a buddy comedy movie where it's big Venom gets thrown out the house and it's jokes and the tone's off and lame, again, PG-13 Venom scenes when I just want to see some R-rated Venom, it's very frustrating and it's very annoying. And the whole movie just feels cheap. There just seems like they're trying to tie it into the MCU all of a sudden, which it just felt like that was the only reason this movie really existed. Andy Serkis' direction was terrible. The story was terrible. The action was terrible. About the only good thing was when they fought in the end, and even then I kind of thought that could have been a little better. So my basic thoughts, just a bad movie overall. Taking the number 8 spot on this list is Cherry, a movie that, by all accounts, should be a good movie. There are pieces here. You could easily make this into a movie that really made some major statements about PTSD, the war we had over in the Middle East, so much about so many things, and it does none of that. It goes for the most simplistic, basic storytelling you could possibly do, and it's just a letdown. There is nothing to this movie which conveys any sense of originality or trying to do something new or being bold or trying to be unique or make a good statement. It's just a long, boring, flat, lifeless, soulless movie that just feels like you waste about 2 hours of your time watching something unfold, which just you're not invested in and doesn't play out with any emotion. And that makes me really disappointed because I like Tom Holland a lot as an actor, but it seems like aside from his Spider-Man in the MCU, he doesn't get roles that really live up to the standard and the quality of an actor that he is. So basically, that's why I think this movie's just bad. Coming in 7th place is Snake Eyes. This movie is just continuing the trend of trashy, bad G.I. Joe based movies. And this movie is also one of the biggest deception films I've ever seen. In the trailer, they have Snake Eyes, like, wearing the outfit and everything. But if you watch the movie, he's not wearing it except for, like, the final 5-10 minutes of the movie. Also, the movie doesn't even feel like a Snake Eyes movie. It's just this weird movie that seems like it wants to be amazing and cool and big and start its own universe, but it's so focused on that it's not really telling a story. And it has Henry Golding in it, who's a really good actor that I really like. I've liked him since he did Crazy Rich Asians, but here, there's nothing to the movie. He's not really given a chance to do anything. Every character in it's bland. The villains are bland. The story is bland. Everything is lackluster, second-rate, boring filmmaking. There's nothing to the film that lends to it being a G.I. Joe franchise starter. This should be something that was great, and it should be something that should be easy to make, but somehow, for some reason, Hollywood just doesn't know how to make these movies, and it's disappointing. Number 6 on this list is Chaos Walking, a movie that I was greatly let down by not being as good as I wanted it to be. It has Daisy Ridley and Tom Holland, so it's kind of like, that's a unique pairing. I kind of think I'd like to see that. And it kind of had a cool concept when they were explaining what the movie was going to be about, but I was kind of concerned because the movie had been delayed and delayed and delayed, and they had done reshoots and a whole bunch of stuff. And when it came out, it shows. The movie is confusing. It doesn't have a clear narrative, and all the things it sets in place and in motion to be unique just come out weird and contradictory. And the villains are stupid. And the heroes aren't all that great. And everything and all the potential in this movie that was good is just wasted, and it makes very little sense. There are like a few bits in it that are funny. There's like gags that work. There are ideas that could be further explored that they don't even bother exploring. So it just feels like it's been underused as a film, and it was a letdown to me, and I just really wish this film could have been better. It genuinely was sad to me to see this movie be as bad as it was. Taking number 5 on this list is Tom and Jerry, one of the movies I had the displeasure of seeing very early this year, which isn't even a Tom and Jerry movie if you watch it. It's kind of more a rom-com with the actors in it, the live-action people, and occasionally, like every now and then, it'll be like, now let's cut to some slapstick with Tom and Jerry. And they're going to beat up on each other and going to do all this kind of crazy stuff. And then it just goes right back to the rom-com again. And it doesn't ever focus actually on Tom and Jerry, really, or give you a Tom and Jerry movie. And everything with Tom and Jerry in it is very disposable and just throwaway. There's nothing very investing about it or anything to take away from it. Chloe Grace Moretz's character is a horrible person in here. I mean, she's just a terrible person. Her character lies and it's constantly manipulative. It's an unappealing watch. And this is supposed to be a kid's movie, and it just doesn't teach any good moral lessons. And it also, even though it's trying to be sold as a kid's movie, oftentimes seems more like it's a movie geared towards 20-year-olds or teens or someone older. It's very confused in its tone. And it just feels out of place. It was a strange film to make. It wasn't even necessary. And it was just a big mess. Number 4, Boss Baby 2. Let me make this clear off the bat. I hated the first Boss Baby. But I think I might hate Boss Baby 2 even more. This movie went from the first one's level of sheer stupidity, confusion, and absolute chaos to now they have the biggest plot contrivances to get things to work in this movie as humanly possible, and expanding their weird, strange, confusing universe in the most distorted, odd way you really could. So, I have to say, I am slightly biased against this movie because when I went in to see it, I had no expectations for it, wasn't ready to really like it, but at least thought, hey, they probably are going to make it better than the first one because the first one they at least saw didn't do too great. And then this one came out and I was just like, nope. They've not learned a single lesson over the course of these movies. It's still as bad. It's just still a lot of just tired humor that doesn't really land for me. Dumb plots, and it's just the entire concept and the way it's written is so confusing. I still don't like the first one, and the second one I think is even worse and even more confusing. Third place goes to Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. I have just one question for these people. Why are you still making these movies? These things were terrible. They've been terrible. They were horrible for years. And in the era of reboots, this is what we're going to reboot. Is this thing. Like, why? And it's just still the exact same thing they've always been, which are these just vague, just skeletons of what the games were, made into cheap, disposable movies that seem like there's no care put behind them, but just a money grab, and people pay to see these movies, so they keep coming out with them, and it's mind-boggling. There's nothing to this movie I liked. The music was terrible, the cinematography was terrible, the acting was bad, the screenwriting was bad, the direction was bad. Everything about this movie was bad. I just sat through the entire film bored until I became a lifeless bag of air that blew away in the wind because I just seemed to have lost faith in humanity while watching this film. Real quick before I give you my number 2, I just want to say these top 2, it took me some time. These 2 films were so bad and just so annoying and got under my skin so much that it took me a good long time of actually sitting down with my brother and kind of discussing them to decide which one was worse. And with that said, I think I finally have it in the order I like. So, our number 2 spot, Space Jam 2: A New Legacy. A cash grab, a show-off of your own studio, a waste of time, a nostalgia nightmare where essentially you take a well-beloved movie, say let's make a sequel to it, only this time let's make it with LeBron James. And let's let him act terrible, with his acting being flat as it possibly could be. Let's have a plot that's written like a 5-year-old wrote it, with a confusing scoring system, a game that really just is weird, his son working with an algorithm against him, and computer games versus real life, and in the process just throwing as much Warner Brothers stuff as we can. Just throw it in. Batman, Matrix, Game of Thrones, you name it, throw it in. And while we're at it, let's let Porky Pig rap. It's just a movie that just makes no sense, and things that take place in it seem like they have no purpose to take place, and it just seems like you're just watching things happen because that's what you're told is going to happen. So it's just like, this will happen, and that's why. And we need you to feel this way right now in the movie. But you don't. At least for me, I just sat there angry, honestly, because they're taking something that's so loved and something I really like, which is the original Space Jam, and just trashing it. I didn't have any expectations going into this film. If you actually look at the trailer when it dropped online, the official one, you can actually see a comment I put on it back then saying this movie does not look like it's going to be any good. And a lot of people were commenting back at me saying, no, it's going to be good, it's going to be fine, no, you're just judging early. And when after it came out, I was like, That's what I thought. It's just Hollywood trying to make money off of nostalgia in the most despicable way possible. And I think that's one of the reasons I think this movie is just horrible. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for, my number one worst movie of 2021, which by no coincidence is another little reboot, Home Sweet Home Alone. When I first saw this trailer, I honestly couldn't tell if they were rebooting the series at first or if it was someone doing a cheap knockoff version. You know, people like make a movie and it's a knockoff of a better known movie. I couldn't tell which one it was, and then I finally figured out that it was an actual reboot, and it's just the most disgusting thing I've ever seen this year. The Home Alone series is already, with the last few movies weren't that great, but it still meant something to me with the first movie and somewhat the second movie. I really like those movies. And for them to take that and destroy it beyond any imaginable limit is terrible. In the movie, they have the kid from Jojo Rabbit, which is probably the only good thing in this movie is him. His performance is fine. But aside from that, the actual burglars in this movie, you kind of get where they're coming from. Like, that is, the thing is, they're trying to get their doll back, and it's in that kid's house, but it does belong to them. So I kind of was more or less rooting for them to get in compared to them not getting in. I want to see them succeed. And it's not like the original two where they're just a bunch of airheads who you don't mind seeing get cartoonishly beat around. These people are kind of like, but that's theirs. And I don't want to see this happen to them. The whole thing is just, and it has one of those moments that they keep doing in remakes where they're like, sitting there like, why is it that people keep trying to remake these movies, you know, or the remakes are never as good as the originals. They like, think by being self-aware makes it better, but it's like it doesn't. If you're aware of the fact that they're not as good, why are you doing this right now? If you knew you had no good ideas, why are you doing this? It just comes off as cheap knockoff, and it's just the worst movie to me of all this year. It's 2021. This movie is the worst. So, what were your least favorite movies of 2021? I would love to hear it. Hey, I'm sorry if I had a movie in this list that you really liked and I just kind of trashed on it. I'm sorry. This is just my opinion. Let me know in the comments why you thought that movie was good. If these are movies that you were like, yeah, I think those movies are bad, and I trashed on it, let me know why you agree. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it.